Hey guys, welcome back to Check the Kick podcast, found on Sherdog.com. Glad you're back. I'm Devin, the host. And what a crazy card we're coming off of. UFC 290, incredible. International Fight Week. UFC's been kind of slacking a little bit with International Fight Week, but man, they showed out. During this episode, we're going to go over a couple choice fights that I picked to recap from that card, a current topic in MMA, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick three fights to kind of go over with odds and analysis. Getting started, Pantoja versus Moreno. We have a new champion, Brazilian Pantoja, currently training out of American Top Team. He went out there and had a razor close fight with Brandon Moreno. I'd say probably 3/4 of the media scorecards gave it to Pantoja. I did the recap show with Ben, one of my colleagues here, and he scored it from Moreno. I stopped scoring the fight, quite frankly, after the second round, just because the fight was just so buck wild. I was standing up, pacing around my living room, screaming at the TV. Basically said flyweights are fucking awesome probably 50 times. Incredible fight between those two guys. Razor close again, opening first round. Moreno's looking really good with his jab. He's found his range. Pantoja just leaps in, cracks him with the hook, drops Moreno. They start a scramble, and I said this in the Sherdog Slack, and I was just really surprised with Brandon Moreno's composure in those moments. He looked so good. Both guys looked really good. I would say Moreno probably won 60 to 70% of the striking exchanges on the feet, probably closer to 70. His jab was firing. Every time Pantoja would come in and crash the pocket, he kind of keep a high guard, but step forward and stab an elbow in, which is really, really awesome. I love that Brandon Moreno, as a champion defending his belt, he's like still trying cool shit. And that's something that a lot of the champions start to get away from. They just want to hold their belt, understandably. But Brandon Moreno looked great on the feet. Pantoja is something else, though. His durability is insane. He would look like he was going to start flagging towards the end of the third and fourth round. He looked like he was flagging. He'd come in and just go in there and kick ass again. His back takes, his body triangles. That's what really won him this fight. He was able to hang in the pocket. This fight primarily took place in the pocket. And both of these guys were throwing bombs. Incredible fight. I feel like Moreno, even though Moreno lost, I still think he's probably the better fighter. I just think he's number one. He's a really good rematch guy. I'm sure if they were to decide to run this one back, he could probably figure out a way to win this. I was surprised that I know Pantoja is a really high level grappler, but Brandon Moreno is a really good grappler too. And there were moments where I thought he could have been, sealing the deal and maybe trying to take Pantoja down before Pantoja were to try to take him down or cause grappling or try to take his back. That's what really won Pantoja the fifth round. I actually scored. I said I didn't give a score, but I thought Moreno won that fifth round. I really do. I think the boxing that took place prior to the back take and the control and those few little clubbing shots from Pantoja, I think Moreno just did the better work in that round. I've only watched it back one more time. The fight was just crazy. It's one of those, there were so many things happen. It's almost hard to break down and give a recap and analysis on. If you guys are listening to this and you haven't seen UFC 290, first off, shame on you. And why are you even here? But yeah, that card was just so good. Pantoja's back take game, he may be the best back taker in the UFC. I put him right next to someone like Aljamain Sterling and Charles Oliveira when it comes to their back taking game, and he's really, really good. Lightning quick, gets the body triangle. He even will switch the lock, and he wants to get that rear naked choke. That's his thing. Moreno hung tough. He had his back taken multiple times in this fight. He also had some control time. the stats came out, and I think Pantoja had like over almost 5 minutes, and Moreno had like over two. I always take those stats that they release during the fight or right after the fight, like with a big grain of salt, because I don't think that really tells you much about the fight. Before the back take in the fifth round, the UFC had the significant strikes 18-18 tied. And I was like, well, I don't think we're watching the same thing then, because you guys are just clicking a button and counting. And I just don't think that's a good way to equate what actually happens. It's not a good reflection of what actually went down. Either way, Pantoja is a good guy too. The crowd was booing him and stuff like that, and that kind of sucked because he's a dude that's. I read an article today. It's Monday, July 10th. This show will come out tomorrow on the 11th, on Tuesday. But I read an article that 2 fights ago, up into his Brandon Royval fight when he moved his family from Brazil to Florida and he started to train at American Top Team, that he was still driving Uber. And his wife, I think she was like doing some custodial work. Nothing wrong with driving Uber and nothing wrong with doing custodial work. But this is the UFC champion, and that was 2 fights ago. A little bit weird. And he had a really good moment in the post fight where he said, you know, my mom raised me and my brother by herself. Are you proud of me now, Dad? And he also said, if you guys knew my story, you'd like me. That's pretty big. He seems like a pretty down to earth dude. He's definitely, I mean, his nickname is the Cannibal, and he definitely fights like an animal. He relied on his chin. So Moreno hit him and snapped his head back with so many incredible shots in this fight. He busted him with a elbow. He stepped in the pocket and threw an elbow up kind of around Pantoja's guard, sliced him open. And Moreno is a dude that's also durable, but Pantoja cracks. He's definitely not as clean of a striker as Moreno, but he's probably the harder puncher. And he hurt Moreno multiple times, you know, put him on skates, dropped him in the first round of this one, going back to the action. And these scrambles were good. Moreno showed tons of composure. There was a moment in the first round where they started to scramble after he got hit, and he was like, you know what, let me just take my back, let me take the guard, let me slow things down, let me make things kind of normal, which I thought was amazing. Big shout out to both of those guys. If you want to hear a super in-depth recap on this fight, Ben and I went into it. You can find it here on YouTube. We went over all the fights. So shorter recap about that one, just because so much happened. Just go watch this fight. I mean, I'm going to watch it probably 3 more times this week. Incredible. Shock of the night, probably biggest upset of the night, I think, betting wise. There's a couple other ones. Denise Gomez got a good win over Haragi, but she's a pretty big underdog. But man, Dricus Du Plessis, Robert Whittaker. Dricus Du Plessis knocks out TKO stoppage over Robert freaking Whittaker. I watched this fight 3 times now, and I think I have a better understanding of Dricus's game than I ever have. I also think he's one of those dudes that is just really, really strong, and he clearly he looks like he's giant. He's bricked up. He's huge, but I think he's even stronger than he leads on, like how being you would see him. He has a very, very awkward. His striking is very, very awkward, but his range is good. His striking range is good. It's easy. He finds his jab. He found his jab with ease in this fight. It took him the first half of the first round to find his jab on Whittaker. His southpaw jab was lighting Whittaker up. His defensive range was great. He did a lot of pillaring in this fight, and he had some shoulder rolling. He was kind of shoulder rolling and pillaring and blocking shots from Whittaker. But he found his range kind of very quickly on Whittaker when it came to the striking. Again, his jab crushing Whittaker, that's what, led to the finish here. But starting in the first round, Whittaker cutting angles, popping Dricus with the jab, Dricus staying pretty defensively sound. I don't like that he was backing straight up, but he was kind of backing straight up and throwing his hands up to pillar. But it worked against Robert Whittaker. Robert Whittaker did not have a ton of successful offense on the feet. And there was a clear disparity in power. Like he, anytime he would hit Robert Whittaker, you would see Robert Whittaker physically be rattled, and it would bounce him all the way back. Those shots from Du Plessis just cracking and pushing him back. He was throwing a 1-2 down the pipe, jab and cross. He was switching stance, but most of his work came out of the southpaw. His footwork and his body mechanics just look so weird when he strikes. However, his punching form is not bad. His vision is not bad. He seems extremely cerebral with what he's doing. Towards the second round, I can't believe this happened. He got like a headlock throw against Robert Whittaker, which typically it's like a lower level women's MMA thing. But got the throw on Robert Whittaker. First, he got taken down by Robert Whittaker, and I was like, man, he's jumping on a guillotine. But he kind of used this power guillotine to reverse and escape. Got to his hip and escaped from Whittaker after Whittaker took him down. Got up way faster than Izzy did, or many other people that Whittaker's tried to wrestle. Whittaker's a good wrestler, great grappler. Going back to that like head and arm headlock throw, the way he was able to slice through and power through Robert Whittaker's guard and then start crushing him with elbows. If there was another 30 seconds, a minute left in that, if he would have been in that position past the guard and dropping elbows with a minute left, he probably would have finished him in the first round. He had Robert Whittaker all out of sorts. Second round starts, Dricus is composed, didn't look tired, didn't look gassed. Everybody says he has cardio issues. He got his nose fixed. Everybody knows that he got his nose fixed. And he looked fine. I mean, to me, he's kind of always looked fine. He maybe more of like a mouth breathing guy, but whatever. Robert Whittaker is winning, most of the exchanges on the feet through the second round. But again, it looks like anytime Dricus hits him, it visibly moves him back. These look like big, powerful shots. You could hear them. You can hear the shots landing on Whittaker. And he kind of took advantage of what seemed to work in the Jared Cannonier fight, where Jared Cannonier started finding that southpaw jab. Robert Whittaker does get hurt by jabs. Robert Whittaker might not be the most durable dude, but he's great. Super technical. Second best middleweight, clearly. One of the best middleweights ever as well. Dricus drops him with a power jab out of the southpaw. And this is the most impressive thing. This is why I say he's so cerebral. Drops him with the jab. Dricus notices that he's hurt. Instead of going crazy, crushes him with the leg kick. Robert Whittaker has to kind of switch stance after that leg kick, and then you could see that he's visibly hurt. Dricus then chases him down with a pretty sloppy, but what seemed pretty powerful combination, kind of just switching stance and, throwing big hooks. He gets Robert Whittaker shelled against the side of the octagon, and he digs a huge punch to the body. When he cracks him in the body, you could see that physically like start to drop and hurt Whittaker. He starts going toward a knee, and then Dricus hits him with some more looping shots around the guard, kind of behind the ear, not to the back of the head, but this part of the head, and immediately dropped them. Ref jumps in, saves Robert Whittaker, and Dricus Du Plessis gets a second round TKO stoppage. He doesn't do a ton of things really wrong. Like this fight, he looked fine. He's always had kind of suspect defense. He made a lot of weird decisions. I don't like him using that headlock, head and arm throw. But if he could do it to Robert Whittaker, I mean, he's not going to do it to Bo Nickel, obviously. But I don't see why he couldn't do it to Israel Adesanya. Dricus just seems really big, really powerful. He seems to have good cardio. He's a finisher. And most importantly, he knows how to win fights. That's his thing. That's his biggest asset. He's the type of guy that can have the wrong tool and still get the job done. And that's what he's done through his UFC career so far. But if you watch his tape against Derek Brunson, Watch his tape against Darren Till, and then watch his fight against Robert Whittaker. He's clearly making improvements. Does he still look like he's swatting bees that are trying to sting him when he takes the back foot and someone's throwing more than 2-punch combinations at him? Sometimes, but was he very defensively responsible in this fight? He was. Did he get touched up in this fight? Not really. Some jabs. Robert Whittaker hit him with some clean jabs, but they didn't even seem to bother him. Maybe those bees would have been more of a bother. He seemed durable. I've turned a new leaf on Dricus Du Plessis. I will not go into the post-fight thing where they brought Israel into the cage and that whole thing went down. I didn't love it, but that's it. That's all I got to say. Freaking awesome ass fight by those two. Dricus Du Plessis is clearly the number one contender now after that whole thing went down. I believe Dana White said in the post-fight press conference that they're going to try to make that match for Sydney. I think that's in like 9 weeks or 10 weeks. So that's tight. But if Izzy wants the fight, sure, Dricus would not have an issue taking it. And after all of the things and outside of all of the bullshit with the issue that those two guys have that I don't want to talk about, outside of all that shit, Dricus Du Plessis just TKO'd Robert Whittaker, was ground and pound crushing him, and Whittaker, you could argue, got saved by the bell in the first round, and then went out there and outstruck him in the second round, and TKO stopped him with strikes. Dricus Du Plessis showed that he can out-wrestle and out-grapple someone like Robert Whittaker, and he also showed that he could outstrike someone like Robert Whittaker. That should really excite you in a fight, in a title fight, with him and Izzy. That should be very exciting for any fans. Moving on to what would have been fight of the night, and it's not a spoiler, but Pantoja and Moreno did get fight of the night. I mean, that's fight of the year. Incredible. That one was incredible. Hooker versus Turner. This fight was also a freaking barn burner. 2 top 15 lightweights. Hooker was a big underdog in this fight. I think he was like plus 225. And Hooker wins via split decision. And he paid for this win with a broken wrist, clearly, and also a broken orbital. Second round of this fight, probably going to go down as round of the year. One of the best rounds in MMA that you will watch if you have a friend that is not into MMA or doesn't know about MMA and you want them to like MMA, and you only have 5 minutes of fighting to show them the second round of this fight. First round starts, Jalin Turner. Something I do want to mention before I break this down, Jalin Turner did miss weight. He missed weight by 2 pounds. He missed championship weight by 3 pounds. However, non-championship bouts at lightweight in any division have a 1 pound allowance. So Turner came in at 158, 2 pounds over that 1 pound, 2 pounds over that 1 pound allowance. And Hooker made weight. I think Hooker weighed in at 155.5. They called this a catchweight bout. I do know that Turner forfeited 20% of his purse for the weight miss. And back to Hooker, what he paid for. He paid for this win with a broken wrist that's clear in an x-ray, and another x-ray released a few hours ago. I'm glad I waited kind of to the very end to record this because I was waiting on some fight news that I won't drop because you guys will probably have already seen it. But I was just waiting. Picture released of Hooker's face, orbital bone right here, being broken because he blocked a kick with his face. Don't know how he didn't get knocked out by that. Incredible. First round starts. Jalin Turner comes out throwing his teep kick, blasting Hooker just kind of right in the breadbasket. And I did break down this fight. I picked Jalin Turner to win this fight. Hooker looked way better than I expected, but he did kind of exactly what I expected him to. So I still feel I got the pick wrong, but I kind of got the fight. I got Turner's part of the fight right. Didn't account for the freaking weight miss though. The body kicks were just kind of eating Hooker alive. He was using them to find range. I love that he throws those body kicks without fear of any wrestling coming back, even though he doesn't have the best takedown defense. He's 6'3" and, you know, mostly legs. Anyway, he still throws that teep kick up the middle. And I think his thing is, well, you know, cool, try to take me down, but you're going to eat 4 of these. You're going to eat 4 of these to the body before you get a chance to even get on my hips. If you take me down, I'll figure out how to get back up, because I'm not terrible on the ground. He's not the best, but he's not the worst. His hands look great. Something that the commentary didn't pick up on was Jalin Turner was throwing a lot of, you know, 2s and 3s, 3-punch combinations. And he was throwing combinations that looked good, but a lot of them were kind of rolling off Hooker. Hooker does eat a lot of shots. He doesn't have the best head movement, but a lot of these combinations were missing, but Hooker was countering him in between the offbeat. And it was kind of cool. Hooker was able to do this through the whole fight, but it only, you know, gathered momentum. But if Turner is striking bomb, 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 Hooker is hitting him right in between his rhythm, stopping his rhythm multiple times. Hooker was actually countering pretty well off the back foot. Every time Turner would throw any combination more than 2 punches, between that second and third punch, Hooker was slipping in a shot off the back foot and countering him. He snapped Jalin Turner's head back multiple times. There was a moment, I believe it was in the first round, where Turner kind of buzzed Hooker. Hooker took the back foot, and he threw a 2-punch combination, and right between the first and the second punch, right on the offbeat, just cracked him, counter, snapped Turner's head back. In the second round, the first round was very close. I think Turner probably won that round. However, I do think it was probably closer than the commentary made it believe. Hooker did do some good things in that round. Hooker's kicks were really good in that round. Hooker's body punching was pretty good in this fight too. Turner's body kicks were just fucking... That's like his best strike, is his just stabbing, spearing teep kick to the body. Second round, Turner's having a lot of success with his hands. He's clearly found his range. He's chopping Hooker up with that body kick, and then he switches to a head kick. He didn't throw many head kicks in this fight, but the one he did smashed Hooker in the freaking face. Hooker goes reeling back, and they start brawling. Like, it was like the Dustin Poirier Hooker fight all over again. They start brawling against the cage. Turner's just clipping up Hooker. A lot of dudes stayed really composed that night when they were taking tons of damage. I'm just surprised and kind of happy for Hooker to make that turnaround in this far in his career, because this is the most composed he's looked under fire in a really, really long time. And he's taken some freaking beatings, this guy. But good vision, stayed composed, clips Turner with an overhand. I think it was an overhand left, maybe. Probably you're right. Clips him with an overhand either way. Sends Turner reeling back against the octagon, and then Hooker starting to go to work, crushing him with power combos, big hooks, and then gets the takedown. Finishes the round with Turner taking his back, rear naked choke sunk in. You could see Turner's eyes. He looked like he saw a freaking ghost, and literally saved by the bell. Hooker comes out, takes him down in the third round, and just lands the better shots. At this point, Turner's tired. He's clipping him up with shots that are hurting him. Turner is still having moments in the fifth round. Adelaide Bird scored the fifth round for Turner. I believe it was Adelaide Bird. Someone scored the fifth round for Turner, which is just terrible. You could score rounds 1 and 2 for Turner. I could see that. Round 2 was close. I think Hooker, even though Hooker took a shit ton of damage in the second round, I still think he edged that second round out. Fifth round is clearly Hooker's in my book. Really, really close fight. Again, split decision. Really good fight. God, that was just an incredible one, guys. Go back and watch that one. Go back and watch this whole card. There was the record for most sub 1 minute finishes in modern MMA history, 4 sub 1 minute finishes. Just a ton of great shit from beginning to end. And then I'm not going to break down the Volkanovski-Yair Rodriguez fight because I'm sure everyone else did, but Volk looked great. Volk is the champ. He's a bad mother effer. I don't know who's going to beat that dude. I don't know if it's going to be Ilia Topuria. I don't know who's going to beat that guy. He looks great. Shout out to him too. All right, everyone. Wrapping up out with the old, our first segment of the show. We're going to go ahead and move on to our second and middle segment of the show called What's Hot. Here, I like to discuss hot topics in MMA. And this week's hot topic is heavyweights, UFC heavyweights. Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones. Jon Jones will be defending his heavyweight title. I think he is the number one pound for pound ranked fighter on the UFC's list. That'll probably change when the rankings and all that come out tomorrow, which is the 11th, the day that you guys will hear this, versus the greatest heavyweight of all time, probably the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. One of them. I mean, Stipe is in the top 3 of greatest heavyweights of all time in MMA, probably. And it's Jon Mother Effin Jones. This is a huge fight. Some people are kind of throwing shade on this because Stipe is coming off of a pretty vicious knockout loss to Francis Ngannou. And Jon Jones has only beaten Cyril Gane. But who gives a shit? Because this is Stipe Miocic versus Jon Jones. The odds are out there somewhere. I don't have them here, unfortunately, for you guys, so I'm sorry. If you want to pull them up, you can put them in the comments. Either way, this is a great fight. I'm going to assume that the odds are probably around minus 240 for Jon Jones. He should be a pretty big favorite, but this is a really, really good fight. A guy like Stipe in his prime could definitely give Jon Jones a lot of problems with the boxing, which is kind of like Jon Jones's weakest point. Stipe is also a pretty good grappler, pretty good wrestler. DC had success against him, but he could, stay safe. And Jon Jones is definitely much bigger than DC is, not weight wise, but limb wise and body wise. He's definitely a bigger dude than DC. I don't know how much stronger he is. He's probably just as strong, if not a little bit stronger than DC. And Stipe's beat everyone that matters at heavyweight. Wins over Francis, even though he lost to Francis. He's beaten Francis Ngannou. Not many dudes have done that. Don't call the Derek Lewis fight a win. Beat DC twice, knocked him out once, and then kind of just outclassed him in the third fight. Did get knocked out. I don't think Jon Jones is going to come out here and knock out Stipe. I think at heavyweight, Jon Jones's mission is to be a grappler. And I don't blame him for it because he's good at it and he's big, and there's not a lot of good wrestlers at heavyweight. For Stipe again can kind of do everything. He's definitely a better boxer than Jon Jones, maybe not a better all-around striker. Stipe has a really weird body type. He has like the same leg length of Max Holloway, even though he's a 6'4" heavyweight. And if you look at him, you really look at him, he's kind of got some kind of tiny little legs. Interesting build on that guy. We know Jon Jones is huge, longest reach in the UFC, and Jon Jones likes to use that. He's going to probably press a teep body kicking game against Stipe and then try to wrestle him. And I could see Stipe just really trying to box with Jon Jones. I think that's his best thing that he can do in a fight like this. This is a legacy fight either way. And I think both guys are going to retire after this, win, lose, or draw. Let me take a sip of water. Sorry. I could see Jon Jones wanting a rematch if he loses, almost certainly. But if Stipe loses, I think he's done. And I don't even know if Stipe'd give him the rematch. I think he might just take this last fight and go, especially at payday like Jon Jones. Stipe is a former champion, pretty big name. Definitely not a big name like Jon Jones, but there's no way he's not going to probably weasel his way into some pay-per-view points, even though they're probably going to be tiny. He's probably going to earn something. This is a huge fight, and I'm glad. I love Stipe's walkout I don't love Machine Gun Kelly or anything like that, but I love Stipe's walkout, just the whole vibe of his walkout. I love that walkout. I'm happy to hear that one more time. I'm happy Stipe's coming back. I'm happy he's not coming back and facing a dude like Sergey Pavlovich, who, yeah, yes, Jon Jones is dangerous. He's the baddest man on the planet, but like Sergey Pavlovich would hurt you way worse in a fight than Jon Jones probably would if you lose a fight the way you lose against Sergey Pavlovich. Getting your head squeezed off in a front headlock is not nearly as bad as eating like an 8-punch combination where the last one sends you to God. So yeah, either way, this fight's freaking awesome. There's no analysis that I can give on it just yet. That's the most I can give. This is going to be a great fight for these guys. Big payday for both of them. And yeah, we all want to see Jones fight Sergey Pavlovich, but this is it. Sergey is going to be around a while. Curtis Blades is gone. Jailton Almeida is coming up. You know, there's Tom Aspinall's fighting Marcin Tybura. Sergey Pavlovich is going to fight for the vacant UFC heavyweight title within a year from today. I promise you guys that. This fight's going to happen, I believe, in December. This fight's going to happen in December. The only thing that would stop Sergey fighting in a year is if Stipe wins and he actually grants Jon Jones a rematch. But I could just see, I could see this really being both of these guys' fights. Jon Jones has talked about it. Jon Jones has talked about legacy. And if Jon Jones beats Stipe Miocic, Jon Jones is not dumb. And there's no way he would risk his legacy against someone like Sergey Pavlovich. Too dangerous, not well enough known, and I wouldn't freaking blame him for it. And if he beats Stipe Miocic, he goes away as the number one greatest fighter of all time, and there would probably just be no disputes at all. And if Stipe beats Jon Jones, he's beaten DC twice, beaten a lot of good dudes. He'd have an argument for one of the greatest of all time as well. Either way, freaking amazing fight. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and move on to the final segment of the show called In With the New. This weekend we have at the Apex an amazing card. Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva. That's at the top of the card. That's the event. And we just got notice of this I waited to the very last minute to record this because I was waiting for this to see if it was going to get dropped. I heard that there was a fight being prepared for Jack Della Maddalena. His opponent fell off last week off the 290 card. He stayed in Vegas, and they were able to find him a short notice replacement on 6 days. Bassil Hafez is his opponent's name. Trains out of Pennsylvania. I looked for odds right up until about 30 minutes ago, and I couldn't find any. So I'm sorry, guys. I was not able to find odds for this fight. This got just released an hour ago. I'm going to assume Jack Della Maddalena is a pretty big favorite, but Bassil Hafez doesn't seem to be terrible. I think he's better than his prior short notice opponent. This fight's also going to be contested at 170 pounds. That might change through the week. This may get moved up to middleweight bout. Hafez isn't the biggest dude, but he's fought most of his career at welterweight. And he's coming in on 6 days' notice. Jack Della Maddalena is going to have to cut weight again for the second time in a week. And he's not the biggest dude, but he's definitely not small. Like, this is not a Colby Covington type weight cut down to welterweight. JDM, if you're listening to the show, you know who Jack Della Maddalena is. Great boxing, probably some of the best boxing in the UFC. Slick counterpunching, really, really good with getting his combos off. Good footwork. He knows how to cut the cage off well. Good power punching as well. I really like Jack Della Maddalena. He is very, very good. And his last time out against Randy Brown, he showed that he has submission abilities. He club and sub Randy Brown. I wouldn't say he had difficulties, but I would say he's probably making his reads, and Randy Brown got a lot of offense off on him. But the second Jack Della Maddalena was able to walk him to the cage, he kind of used good footwork to pressure Randy Brown against the cage. Randy Brown tried to cut an angle. Jack Della Maddalena cut the angle, leaped him with a hook, dropped him. Randy Brown kind of face planted, did a very awkward fall, and then he, hopped on a submission. Great. That was a good win. That was his major step up, We all had an eye on him, but that rear naked choke was really, really impressive. Before that, he knocked out Danny Roberts. Danny Roberts is going to get knocked out by a lot of guys in the UFC. Also, his knockout against Ramazan Emeev, where he showed to have the ability to stay smart, even in bad positions on the ground. He showed that he does have at least good enough defensive grappling against someone like Ramazan Emeev, where he can, face adversity, come back, and still get the knockout. And it's not like knockout happened in the first 2.5 minutes of the first round of that fight. Before that was Pete Rodriguez. That was his debut. Pete Rodriguez is probably not for the UFC, and he since fought at lightweight, took a short notice, and kind of got splattered. And then he looked good in the Contender Series against Angelusa, and Angelusa's not bad. Before that, he's a guy that's 14-2, but he's on a 14-fight win streak. He lost his very first 2 fights and has won every single one, and finished basically all of them. Is it all of them besides one? Yeah, all of his wins besides one have been via finish. He's really good. He's a killer. Jack Della Maddalena is awesome. Bassil Hafez, I did as much tape study as I could, but this card is a really, really weak card, and I was only going to break down 2 fights for you guys. If this didn't get announced, that's kind of how weak it is, unfortunately, in my opinion. What did we expect coming off of an A+ card like 290? Bassil Hafez, he took off the whole year in 2019, which I find a little bit strange. He's 31, so he's in the prime of his career. He won the CFFC title via triangle. I know he has multiple no-gis that he's competed in. He's got a split decision win over Anthony Ivy, who I'm not going to call him a UFC vet because he doesn't have a win in the UFC, but he fought in the UFC twice and lost both times. He also has a draw against Jeremiah Wells, a split draw. That was back in 2017 in CFFC. He's fought, he's had a lot of his fights in CFFC. Even his first amateur bout was in CFFC. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights in CFFC. He's fought Evan Cutts twice. Evan Cutts is a guy that doesn't have a losing record and was a champ there. His most recent fight, he beat Evan Cutts via 3rd round KO. And that was back in February 17th of this year. And he doesn't have the most tremendous record. He's 8-3, and he definitely seems to be more of a BJJ guy for sure. Just from his no-gi stuff and his no-gi training and his no-gi competitions and all that stuff. I'm gonna assume Jack Della Maddalena is gonna be a really big favorite, but for the little bit that we know about Bassil Hafez, he was kind of hard for me to find tape on, but he doesn't seem bad. He's got knockout power. He's got, he definitely has some finishes. He likes to submit people, but he can also knock people out. He's got armbar submissions. He's got rear naked chokes. He's got kimuras. He's got triangles. So he can kind of do it all when it comes to grappling. That seems to be his thing. Again, Jack Della Maddalena, JDM is probably going to be a big favorite, probably around -600. Either way, this is a reason to tune into this card. Great fight. I love Jack Della Maddalena. He's a pleasure to watch. He's any analyst's dream to watch if you like violence and you like MMA. Speaking of violence, moving on to the next fight, we got Terrance McKinney versus Sadykhov. Terrance McKinney comes in as an underdog here. Nazim Sadykhov is the -145 favorite. Terrance McKinney comes back at +125, and this is a good-ass fight. It's probably the best fight on the card. Everyone here probably knows about Terrance McKinney. He's definitely a fun guy. His style is super, super, super explosive. Last time out, he was a pretty decent favorite against Ismael Bonfim and got knocked out via flying knee. That was a really hard knockout for him too. It was kind of towards the back of the head on the neck, and he's kind of getting beat up a little bit in that fight. I love Terrance McKinney. We both are from the same area as well. I'm not from here. I live here. We both live in the same area as well. And he's a really good kid, super, super exciting. Terrance McKinney's a good grappler. He's an underrated grappler. He's got good submissions. He's a really explosive athlete. His debut, knocking out Matt Frevola in 7 seconds, just a straight 1-2, pop, pop, really quick, kind of a offbeat where he throws a jab and then just fires the shot right behind it. Just drops Frevola, hurts him right away. Submission against Faris Ziam, that was a good performance. Drew Dober, anybody else would have been knocked out if it wasn't Drew Dober in their fight. Had Drew Dober on Queer Street multiple times in the first round. Drew Dober comes back and finishes him. Terrance McKinney is just a blood and guts, all violence, super action guy. Comes out and beats Eric Gonzalez, Ghost Pepper, just hunts him down on the feet, hurts him, gets a submission rear naked choke. And he kind of looked a little, I don't want to say he looked off against Bonfim, but I definitely don't think he fought to his fullest potential. Bonfim is good, even though Bonfim just lost his last fight. Bonfim is still really good. And I don't know what the cap is for Terrance McKinney, but I think he could potentially beat a dude like Bonfim if he just goes after it. Terrance McKinney's thing is to just go after it. He's super explosive. Probably one of the fastest athletes in this division, if not the fastest, top 3. He's just got so much super explosive athleticism. But again, I think his wrestling is pretty underrated. Moving to the favorite, Nazim Sadykhov, last fight, made his UFC debut and won against Evan Elder via TKO doctor stoppage. He threw like a head kick. I just watched the fight a little bit ago again. This is a great fight, barn burner, like fight of the night type fight. He threw a head kick and then caught Evan Elder in the eyebrow and blew up Evan Elder's eyebrow. He threw the kick, he threw the strike. It was deliberate, cut him open. Doctors went and looked at it, stopped it right away. I remember Dana White posting a picture of this too. I believe it was on his Twitter, and Evan Elder's eye looked jacked up. This was a freaking brawl, and Evan Elder is way better than his short UFC career might show. Sadykhov comes from a good camp. In that fight, he had Ray Longo and Matt Frevola in his corner. He's a Cerro Longo guy. He was catching a lot of kicks. Terrance McKinney loves to throw head kicks. Big snapping fast kicks are part of his game. That's something he likes to do. And Nazim Sadykhov is a southpaw fighter. He has got a good jab. He likes to punch the body, and he's got good pressure. He's got really good pressure. I think he's going to go out and try to put pressure on Terrance McKinney right away. He dropped Evan Elder, but then also got hurt and dropped himself in the first round of their fight. Evan Elder had a lot of success going to the body, but I think Evan Elder is probably a little bit better of a boxer than Terrance McKinney. Evan Elder is definitely just probably a less wild type of guy. Definitely not as athletic or fast as Terrance McKinney, but definitely probably just a cleaner boxer. Had a lot of success. Sadykhov also had a lot of success in that fight. His footwork was really, really good. His jab looked good in this fight. He can wrestle too. He can scramble, and he seems to be a guy that listens to his corner. I think he's definitely hittable, and I could see Terrance McKinney definitely trying to catch him with something. I think Terrance McKinney should try to wrestle this guy, though. Evan Elder was able to get takedowns on him. Evan Elder is a good wrestler, but I don't think he's the wrestler or the athlete of Terrance McKinney. Terrance McKinney he's all of his fights have just been like one round in the UFC. So I could totally see his only fight that's gone out of the first round in the UFC was against Bonfim, but I could totally see him, getting takedowns, doing the right thing, but still getting caught with something because Sadykhov seems to be super tough and durable. There was so many shots that Elder landed on him that he kind of just walked through, or, he did get dropped, but nothing seemed to be really super impactful. I have a hard time with this fight because I really like Terrance McKinney, and I know that if Evan Elder can hurt Sadykhov, I don't see why Terrance McKinney can't. It is the round. The odds are really close. And if this fight goes further into the rounds, if this fight starts the third round, you probably have to favor Nazim Sadykhov. Um, I think I'm, and I don't know who I'm going to pick. I have notes on both of these guys here. Here are my notes. They're chicken scratchy, but here are my notes. But I don't have a pick. And I think I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney. And I think he can catch him the same way that Evan Elder caught him. But Terrance McKinney's also not as durable as Evan Elder. And Terrance McKinney gets hurt and finished in a lot of his fights. I think the smartest way for Terrance McKinney to win is to grapple, but I don't know if he's going to do it. I think he's going to come out like a house on fire, especially since he just lost a fight. And he's been tweeting like, hey, I'm the underdog, bet some money on me. And that's how Terrance McKinney is. He's a killer, be killed dude. Gonna go the underdog pick. Mind you, I got all my picks wrong last week, I think, which is not a good look, but I didn't bet, so I didn't lose anything. Gonna go Terrance McKinney is the plus 125 underdog, but this fight is a literal crapshoot. But I can promise you guys one thing, it's going to be a hell of a fight. This is my fight of the night. That's why I threw it on here. And then the last fight I want to break down with you guys is going to be the main event. Holly Holm versus Mayra Bueno Silva. Holm's a small favorite. She's coming in at minus 143. Mayra Bueno Silva's coming back at plus 123. Those are the first odds that I saw, so I just threw them down on the paper. I'm sure they'll probably shift or, be up or down a little bit by the end of the week. Mind you, this is Monday the 10th that I'm recording this. You guys will be listening to it on Tuesday probably, or even later on in the week. And Holly Holm is in her 40s. She just signed another contract with the UFC, and I think this is the first fight on her new 3-fight deal. She's 41, and I don't think it matters in this division with someone with her physicality and her athleticism and the skills that she has for MMA. Wet my whistle. I don't think her being 41 matters with the game that she plays. She kind of plays an old man's game. Mayra Bueno Silva. She's an explosive athlete, and she's coming up from 125. There are fights on her record that I don't like in a fight against Holly Holm, but I definitely think she's she's definitely the more, I'm not going to say the more powerful fighter, because Holly Holm definitely is probably going to be stronger and bigger. Mind you, Mayra Bueno Silva is coming up from 125, and she has fought at 125 in the past. Holly Holm has fought at featherweight prior, and Holly Holm is big. She's very strong and very muscular. But I'm going to say Mayra Bueno Silva is a harder puncher for sure. She's definitely the faster puncher, definitely faster hands than Holly Holm. I know Holly Holm comes from a boxing background, but Holly Holm does not rely on her boxing in 2023 in MMA. Holly Holm is a swinging, cling, cage-controlled fighter. That is what she does. She is a Jackson Wink fighter in 2023. She wants to press people on the cage. She wants to hit you in the clinch with elbows and punches and get a lot of cage control. Can she fight at range? I do believe she can. She's just a very controlling fighter at this stage of her career. That is her thing. She's not going to go out there and head kick Mayra Bueno Silva. It's not going to look like the Ronda Rousey fight. That's just not her game anymore. Her grappling, her topside grappling, her takedowns have evolved so much, and her cage control, she's just so strong. She knows how to negate people's games and negate damage, and that's just important. And she just wins fights. Holly Holm seems to be a big enough star too, to where she doesn't have to be exciting to have fans anymore. The crowd still cheers for her when she comes out, and we all know what she's going to do. Mayra Bueno Silva is definitely, I would say, a little bit more of a chasing finisher type of girl. She has multiple arm bars. That's her thing. She's got knee bar wins. Her last fight out, she knee bar Lena Landsberg after kind of beating the shit out of her, just bludgeoning her. Losses on her record, like Minor Moreau's like a fight, like a loss like that in 2020 freaks me out. Getting a draw against Montana De La Rosa in 2021 is not a good look. And then, you know, beating Manon Fiorot or losing to Manon Fiorot right after that year. Like 2021 was not a good look and a good year for Mayra Bueno Silva. She beat the shit out of Wu Yanan when she kind of started this run up here at bantamweight. Stephanie Egger fight was really weird. That was like the phantom tap one. And then again, she just beat the crap out of Lena Landsberg. So this is a big step up competition wise for someone that, you know, you look at the records and you remove the names. You know, if it's not Holly Holm and it's not Mayra Bueno Silva, you just look at the records, you'd assume that Holly Holm would probably be a 3-1 favorite here. But again, Mayra Bueno Silva is big and strong. She's super, you know, she's super tough. I'm going to think this fight's going to look like that Ketlin Vieira fight where Holly Holm lost via split decision, but a lot of people thought she won. It could look a lot like the Raquel Pennington fight. It's probably going to look like the Yana Santos fight. It's probably going to look like the Irene Aldana fight. These are probably how Holly Holm's fights are going to look moving forward. The question is, can Holly Holm just negate the damage and get the control that she wants? We know that Mayra Bueno Silva is an active guard player off her back. She will play jiu-jitsu if you let her. And I think that could be a potentially dangerous place for Holm, but I think that's safer than just swinging in the pocket with her. Holly Holm is, you know, fairly durable unless she gets kicked in the head by Amanda Nunes. But I think unless your name's Dan Hooker, anyone that kicks you in the head flush, it's going to freaking put you on skates. But I don't think Holly Holm can just hang out in the pocket and brawl with her. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think she'd want to just get in there and really just let her hands fly, trading 2, 3, 4 punch combinations. I don't think that's going to be the game. I think we're going to get a lot of outside jabs from Holm, a lot of Holm closing the distance, a lot of Holm trying to land shots on the clinch break. That's her thing. And I think Mayra Bueno Silva's going to have to try to clip her up. I went into this fight leaning towards Mayra Bueno Silva, but now that I'm breaking it down, I'm going to go with Holly Holm. I'm going to go with the veteran. I don't think age matters at women's bantamweight. It's women's bantamweight. You know, this is the equivalent of men's heavyweight and maybe worse. Probably worse as far as, you know, who's there and what's going on there skill-wise. Going to go with Holly Holm. Again, I think Holm can just eat her best shots, take her against the cage, control her. I think she can just outbox her with the jab and kick her a little bit, but I just don't think that Holly Holm is risk averse. She wants to win fights. She just signed a 3-fight contract. Amanda Nunes is gone. Whoever wins this fight will probably be contesting for the vacant women's bantamweight belt, especially if it's Holly Holm, and probably Mayra Bueno Silva, because if she gets a scalp on her wall like Holly Holm, then you earn a title shot, in my opinion. So yeah, this fight has title implications. Does it have title implications for probably the worst division in the UFC? One could argue that, but there's still title implications. Winner of this probably fights Raquel Pennington or Juliana Pena. And I guess that's a big fight. Not the best card, quite honestly. There's a couple other good names on this card. Evan Elder's on this card, and I like Evan Elder, especially after I rewatched his fight with Nazim Sadykhov. So I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. But either way, we got a couple more good cards coming up, and then we have a pay-per-view at the end of the year that's going to be a freaking banger. That's all for the show, guys. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. UFC 290 was badass. This card coming up is not as badass, but it is still high-level MMA. Hope you guys tune in. Thank you for listening and enjoy the fights.